Hello and welcome to the Pod Awakens. My name is Jordan. With me, as always, is Ron. How are you today, Ron?
Doing good, man. We are past the holiday craziness of it all, and we are just kind of ready to dive back into some Star Wars here tonight.
Yeah, talking Skeleton Crew, the last two episodes that came out recently, 5 and 6. So we'll be discussing those. But before we get into that, there was a lot of fun stuff that dropped or was rumored today as well. So we'll discuss that first. Checking in on Jake Lloyd, right? Why don't you fill us in on what was revealed today?
Yeah. So, as anybody who's kind of locked into the Star Wars social media space knows, over the last maybe 6 months to a year, we've been getting small little nuggets of information here and there, courtesy of Jake's mom, Lisa, about how he's doing and his recovery from his mental health issues and things like that. And today we got basically the most extensive information we've gotten from him in well over a decade, courtesy of Clayton Sandell, who I wasn't familiar with, but apparently is a pretty well known figure in the Star
Yeah,
Wars social media
he
space.
used to be, I'm not sure if he still is, on an ABC affiliate channel as a
Okay.
newscaster. And because ABC is also part of Disney and stuff, I believe they used to do a lot of he used to do a lot of interviews or stuff related to Star Wars, definitely during the sequels, like during the sequel era.
Okay. Cool. Cool. Well, yeah, he had a chance to directly communicate. I don't know if I doubt it was a sit down thing, but likely over the phone, uh, where he got to actually talk to Jake and his mom for a decently extended period of time, and they kind of break down his recovery and the journey that they've been on, and him sort of coming to the realization that he needed help and the steps that they've taken since then to get him back on the right track. And it just, I don't think I'm overstepping and speaking for you here when I just wanted to say that it made us both very happy, along with countless other people in the Star Wars fandom. Unfortunately, Jake's journey, for better or worse, with mental health has been well documented because of his status as a sort of former child star, which is it's something that should be very private and allowed to handle behind closed doors. But because he has that sort of celebrity to him, he hasn't been afforded that opportunity. So seeing this today and just seeing the path and the road to recovery that he's on, and even sort of starting to re-embrace the Star Wars side of things. He talks about how him and his mom are planning to have a Star Wars movie marathon for May the 4th this year, and buying T-shirts and things like that. And it's really awesome to see. And we know Jake's probably never going to see this, but just wanted to start off the show tonight and say how happy it made us, and give him all the kudos in the world for being brave enough to take those steps. Um, you know, Mental health is something that a lot of us struggle with. Uh, and it sucks that he kind of had to get put through the ringer that he was put through as a kid, and all the things that followed after that. It's been rough for him, and like I said, well documented. So to see him finally pull the reins up on this thing, it's very inspiring, and we love to see it. So I wanted to give him his props there and just say we're all pulling for you, Jake.
Yeah, he's not just Anakin Skywalker. He is also in our favorite Christmas movie, Jingle All the Way.
Yes.
So, yeah, I mean, he was a big part of my childhood. So, hoping that everything goes well for him in his personal life.
Yeah, and hopefully he reaches the point someday where he's comfortable enough, maybe even being forward facing in the Star Wars community again. Maybe doing a couple appearances a year, and
Like
getting to
Ahmed
do.
Best, right? I mean,
Yeah.
he was pushed to the side after the Jar Jar stuff. And then he is been welcomed back. And I think if he did ever feel comfortable enough, he shows up at Celebration. I think they give him a standing applause.
Oh, it would be a massive pop, just taking into account all of the flack he got as a kid that was very undeserved, and everything that he's been through since then, to be able to sort of have that full circle moment and be able to come back, whether it's on stage at Star Wars Celebration or at, local River Valley Uncle Lou Tech convention center. You know what I mean? Whatever it is, however big or small, it would be great to see. So hopefully that's the case. But either way, just very happy to see him back on the right path.
All right. And then we also had some rumors, reports from scoopers who have I feel like have started to get less and less accurate as we go, but grain of salt.
Yeah, it's kind of like the MLB thing, right? It's like if you get 1 out of 3, you're a Hall of Famer. That's like what it's like being a scoop.
Daniel RPK is usually more accurate when it comes to like trailers when they're dropping stuff like that. He definitely has somebody in some sort of production thing, or I guess maybe even they might have somebody more with like the film side of stuff where it's like maybe like theater side of stuff where they're like, hey, we're going to be getting this trailer for this movie by this time, and then he is able to figure out, or somebody tipping him off. But this is less trailer related news, so take it with a grain of salt here. But he was reporting today, it was what was going around today anyway, is that the Skeleton Crew characters will be showing up in the Dave Filoni film, Star Wars film. What we've speculated before is that the Dave Filoni film, I'm not sure if they outright said it, but they kind of alluded that it was going to be like tying up, or this big crossover between, the, I guess maybe Book of Boba Fett characters. We don't know if they'll actually show up in it, but Mando, the Rebels characters from Ahsoka, and I guess now Skeleton Crew characters. I will say I'm taking this with the biggest grain of salt that I've ever had, because I'm not sure how these characters will fit in. And this is before we get to the finale. So maybe they're set up in the finale that's like, these kids are going to go on an adventure. Or maybe it doesn't even mean the kids. This could be Jod. It could be Brutus. It could be any of these other pirate characters that would show up in this movie. But I don't know. I would say when I saw this today, I was very skeptical. I was like, I don't know if this is true.
Well, I think you touched on a very key aspect of this, because he said characters from this show will be appearing in the movie. He never said, the main character kids or anybody in particular. So part of me feels like the best chance is a situation where it's like, yeah, we see the pirates from this show, or like they go to probably not Aten, but like somehow in that movie they end up at a location
at Akron.
they were at in the show, at Akron, maybe, or the place they were at tonight, which it's skipping my mind what the name of it was, but that sort of spa planet that they were on, that I think we saw Darth Plagueis in a mud bath in. I don't know. We'll come back when we get there.
It's a weird sequel to The Acolyte. You get a little bit of Plagueis here in a mud bath.
Just post it up, just straight chilling. Like, shit, I got canceled. Whatever. I'm just gonna fucking sit here and exfoliate.
Yeah. My show got canceled. I'm, drowning my
living the retired life.
Yeah, living the retired life. What is the planet name? I have to look that up. But yeah, go ahead.
Written down here in my notes. It's just my notes are so all over the place. Lanupa.
Yes, Lanupa. You know what that reminds me of? The droid on Paulus, was it Paulus NASA, or Paulus Massa, where Padme is giving birth to the twins, and they're like, Oopa, Oopa, or they're like telling her to breathe, I guess. But like, that's what that name of the planet reminds me of. Like, I'm just picturing one of those droids saying that.
I definitely thought that there was like a droid in that scene that was like named something similar, that I like, you had my gears turning. I was like, where the hell is he going? But yeah, just to bring it back to the report about the characters in this movie. I hope it's not the case. We've been very much on record saying that we love the fact that this show is self-contained in its own thing. If you want to throw some background characters from this show and some background locations from this show into the movie, just to make it feel lived in sort of thing, sure, go ahead. But I'm still in the camp of, as much as I love this show and I love all of the main characters in this show and think they're great and do want to see more, I want it to continue to be its own thing. That's where I'm at, and it's where I'm staying.
So I'll be on a little bit of another side of this because I think I'm fine if they appear in the movie. What I don't want is the show to have connections to larger stuff. So meaning like we get to like episode 8 and in swoops Mando to save the day.
Yeah.
Or in swoops Zeb, because he's part of the he's part of the New Republic. Like
Sabine, what the hell are you doing here?
Yeah. Like I would be okay with like Carson Teva showing up if he needed to be, but I was actually glad he was not one of the X-Wing pilots in the 3rd episode. Like I was actually glad they were different X-Wing pilots.
Oh, really? Actually, that would have been the only one I'd be cool with, just because it's like the running joke that he has to be in everything. Like he's almost like the one that I keep separate. That I'm like, you know what? Put him in that. Put him in animation. Put him in whatever the hell you want to put.
Yeah,
him
I mean, if he shows up in like the finale, I'll be like, fine. When Mon Mothma shows up to like welcome them in the New Republic, whatever, that's fine. But what I don't want is like it to be like a Deus Ex Machina type thing where they come in and almost like recreating the Han Solo, like, take your shot, kid. And it's like Mando's never met these people and he comes in saying that. You're like, what is going on? Because we keep seeing this, right? Like this was something I tweeted about too, because I saw a poll about it and I'm like, will Mando show up in the episode 6? Guess what? He didn't. Thank God. Yeah. But it was, will they show up? And I just quote tweeted the next thing I saw because I keep seeing this. So it's nothing directed to the people I quote tweeted. But
they got a little saucy with you.
My main point was it's okay to have things disconnected. So I see your point. I think it's fine if they show up in the movie. I do. I think that might be asking a little bit too much of the movie-going audience to know who these kids are, because from all metrics we know, this show is not really making a mark on the general public.
No.
And I think it would be fine. Let's say they do a season 2. If they come back and they just don't really reference any of those events from the movie, fine. Like, keep that contained. It's just like their next adventure or whatever. But I really do think this will probably be a one and done because we haven't seen it really become as popular as I would say. It's very popular with Star Wars fans.
The people who are going to watch no matter what.
Yeah. Haven't heard much buzz about it in the general population. I do hope it's something they'll discover later because it is like this charming, wonderful show. I'm glad it's been made. It's probably not as big of a money loss as like Acolyte or even Andor because this is shot a lot with the volume. And I think it looks great. Anybody that really kind of keeps crapping on the volume, I don't see it. I'm sorry. I think it looks great.
It looks fantastic, dude. And I will say I am very curious to see what the budget is on this thing when it gets revealed, because as much as they do use a lot of the volume in this show and do a great job of it, there's a lot of really epic set pieces in this show as well that are CGI. Like, I think in episode 6, the whole, like, the ship taking off and when they go to pick up. Like, there's, at the same time, there is a lot of very grand, large kind of shots in this show. So I'm curious to see what the budget was. I think it might be a little higher than we thought it was going to be coming in.
Yeah, but I would still think it is way lower than Acolyte and Andor, which focus on filming on location, which is a lot of money.
Yeah,
that's a lot of money to film on location. Especially I think like some of like the forest planet that the Acolyte shot on. Some of that's in a soundstage, right?
Yeah,
but like some of it where they're like filming on hills and stuff. Like I thought it was a place in England that somebody was able to point out. Like, apparently very expensive to film on. So.
Which is funny because when the Acolyte came out, I feel like I remember us being like, yeah, it probably didn't have to be so expensive. A lot of it is set in this condensed one location. Then the budget comes out and it's like, geez, oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah, because like again, because they were really focusing on like not using the volume, I guess, for that one. So it's been weird because I remember when Mando season 1 came out, everybody's like, "This looks great. This is how you do Star Wars on a budget." And then for some reason, people turned on that and were like, "No, everything." It's kind of like when the Force Awakens was coming out, and like their promo material was always like real sets, real effects. You know, and you're like,
Yeah.
we get it, because the prequels went overboard on that stuff.
Uh-huh.
But like it felt like people were doing that again with the volume, even though I think it still looks great. For some reason, the tide turned on it like they always do. And then it happens. Give it 5-6 months. People are gonna hate Skeleton Crew. I'm putting that down right now. Because it's happened with every show. Mando was a hit, and then like people are like, Favreau, Filoni, give them everything, and then they start doing more, and people are like, take it away from them.
Yeah.
You're like,
the tweets are going to be coming out. Are we ready to admit that this show was mid and overrated? Like
we saw it with Deadpool and Wolverine. Like it happens. It's a cycle.
Hot take culture, man.
And it happens faster and faster every year, it feels like. But yeah, so I mean, like this show, I think just looks great still. I think this is the way that they have to go going forward. If you want Star Wars to be on television, I'm sorry, the volume is probably going to have to be. We've talked about this before. Like, I know people don't want it to look low budget. I think the volume looks fine.
Yeah.
We used to deal with having TV shows like, not that I watch Star Trek, but I've seen Star Trek stuff where it's like all taking place on one ship and then maybe a couple rooms on a different planet. Those are sets, and those are like, you know, well-made sets, whatever, and it helps you to reuse the thing. The volume does that even faster, and cheaper. It just makes sense that this is how, if you want Star Wars to continue on television, this is how it's going to be, because on location is really expensive.
Yeah. And as much as we loved how great Acolyte looked visually, like, again, like you said, it's just...
it's minimal, though. Like, the difference between the two is so minimal that it's like, yeah, let's try to do it some cheaper, and you could have got a second season.
The juice is nowhere near worth the squeeze in terms of, like, it's really not. As long as you're telling a good story, it doesn't matter if it's on volume and person, like, to an extent, of course. I mean, you know, there's shitty CGI out there. A lot of it is in some of my favorite Star Wars movies, as a matter of fact. But, like, as long as it doesn't take you out of it, which the volume definitely doesn't do, like, it's just another thing to kind of complain about. So, you know, that it's just going to be how it is.
Before we really kick off here, Happy New Year. This is also the 20th anniversary of Revenge of the Sith and the 10th anniversary of The Force Awakens. Yeah, so we got some big anniversaries. We'll have some episodes surrounding those two in the months that they were released. So we'll dive into those. But let's start diving into what I think are two very strong episodes of Skeleton Crew. You have a lot to learn about Pirates, which was directed by Jake Schreier and written by Mayung Jo Wesner. And it was aired December 24th, 2024 on Disney Plus. And Zero Friends Again, which was also written by Mayung Jo Wesner and directed by Bryce Dallas Howard of Star Wars Disney Plus fame. She's done, I think, on almost every show except Andor. I think she did she do an Ahsoka? She definitely did Mando, Book of Boba Fett, I think, and...
I am almost positive she did. If she didn't direct, she had to at least produce a little bit of it. There's no way.
I have to double check. Yeah, I have to double check.
Either way,
she did at least. Yeah, she did Return of the Mandalorian in Book of Boba Fett, one of the best episodes. And then she did 3 episodes of Mando, 1 in each season, and then Skeleton Crew. So when can we give Bryce Dallas Howard a movie? Because I think she directed very well.
Yeah, I'm sure that'll come in the next batch of movies that we just cross our fingers and hope they'll actually be made. I think she'll definitely get one in the not too distant future, I'd imagine.
She'll get one announced at least. Yes. We'll see if it happens.
They'll prance her out there at Celebration, and it'll be hype and hoopla, and then 2 months later, the writers will drop off the project. So we'll see. Sorry, I don't mean this is going to be a positive episode. I love this show, but we had to sneak in some fun.
But yeah, so episode 5, they arrive to this planet, which is like a spa planet, and I know there was people that are probably having flashbacks to Canto Bight. Not again. And then the second episode takes place on the same planet here, as things have shifted because they escaped from Jod after he causes a mutiny, or a trial by combat type of thing that Fern will yield in the first episode. And then the kids get separated. They kind of go their own way, which I said was going to happen at some point. So check that off. And then they come back together, and it's revealed in one of the episodes, I forget which one, that Renaud did have like a second shell, more armor on it, and then that is what they blow off in this episode, and you get the more sleek onyx cinder underneath as they take off. So I guess give me your thoughts on these 2 episodes, 5 and 6.
I liked them a lot. It was there was some surprises in there that I wasn't expecting. Like after last week's episode, I very much thought that it was like, all right, Jod's on the good side of things now. You know what I mean? He's not the money hungry pirate that he was when we saw him in the beginning of the show. But he does a pretty quick 180 in this episode, and I thought it worked really well. There was a lot of really cool, fun Easter eggs in there. The lightsaber, of course, being my favorite, which I have some theories on. That looked a little High Republic-y to me, with all the gold inlaid in there and stuff.
I think it is. I think if we have to look back at again, when we're talking about what is Old Republic, they're referring to not the capital O Old Republic. They're talking about the prior Republic. So I do think I think most likely Renaud landed at Atten circa High Republic, and this stuff is as he left it, so that lightsaber is probably around then.
I have a theory on him, by the way. We'll get into it when we dive in a little deeper. But yeah, I liked him a lot. I loved learning a little more about KB this week in terms of like what she's got going on with her. I'm just going to call it a visor, just so because I know there's some kind of fancy
how insensitive.
Yeah, I know. I'm an asshole. But it was good to see us get a little more of her and the dynamic between them. Earlier in the show, I wasn't jumping off a cliff with this prediction, but I said that it felt like KB was going to be the one to finally get to Fern and be the one that kind of softens her rough edges a little bit in terms of being like the bully, bossy type. And we saw that in episode 6. Like I said, we got some fun. We got the X-Wings and things like that. So there was some fun Easter eggs. I liked them a lot. I thought they were really good, really cool. And I'm excited to kind of get into the more specifics here. I'm trying to be a little vague with my initial thoughts, but I enjoyed them a lot.
Yeah, I think these might be my favorite 2 so far. Like I think episode 5 is the best one so far, because it's like this real. I would say this is one that really felt like Goonies, where you're talking about them getting into the pirate room, right? Having people after them, seeing all of the items in Renaud's room. We also have Renaud like hologram that's broken out, so we can't see who it is. And do you know what Renaud backwards is, by the way? Did you catch this at all?
Yeah, it's Donner. They said it was like a nod to Richard Donner.
Yes, yep. Who directed Goonies and Superman, the movie. So a little bit of a nod there to that. I thought that's cool.
To take it a step further, his first name is Tack. So if you do it backwards, it's Donner Cat, which could be like Donner Cut. So that just like the Donner Cut. Yeah, I saw that. So,
or maybe Donner is a cat guy.
Maybe.
I don't know enough about him. I don't know.
Is he still alive? I don't know. That's
no. I think he passed in like 2020. It was recent.
Oh, okay.
Very recent.
Damn it. We'll never even be able to ask him.
Yeah. Are you a cat guy or dog guy?
Some mysteries are better left unsolved.
2021 is when he passed away. He was 91 years old.
Shit. God bless him.
Yeah. But yeah, so I think these two have been kind of like some of the highlights. I also really liked some of the guest stars in these episodes. We have Julie Ann Emery was in it. She was like the one who was checking them into the thing. Yeah, and she's very great as Betsy Kettleman in Better Call Saul. So
very funny too. She played the role of, like, she had me cracking up when they pull down and she's got like the smile, and then she just like the ship and it lands on the other one, and just that, like, the way she shifts to like pure disgust. It's like, oh man, she's very good. Very good.
They have high class clientele in there. Darth Plagueis is in there chilling. All right. But she's such a great actress, and I think she's so much fun to see in roles. So when she showed up, I was like, oh my god, it's Betsy Kettleman from Better Call Saul. And then I think just these two episodes also have been really, really strong in the Jude Law department. He's been very, very good. You can kind of see the conflict in him in that 5th episode when he's saying, just yield, right? Like, just yield. I don't want to hurt you, pretty much is what he's saying. Just yield and everything will be fine. He's not expecting the kids to hit the trap door, which I thought was a really cool ending to the episode as well.
You know what he does really well? He does like the dry comedy, like him being sort of like the straight man, as they say. Like, he does that very well in this show, for sure.
He would have been a great Michael Bluth.
Yes, very much so.
He can pull that off very well. But yeah, no, I think he has like this really good portrayal where he is balancing being very likable at times, right? He's very charming, very charismatic. We see it when he's trying to lay on the charm with Julianne Emery's character, and smoozing his way past, as we get another name for him now when Pocket talks to him, right? So we have again, everybody, the kids are starting to catch on. They're like, another name. But then, like I said, you see the conflict in him when he is starting to like have to turn on the kids. And there's this great monologue he gives in episode 6 when he has the equal time, right? All these pirate roles. And he milks that time for every second and ends up converting them all back to his side, and these are people that were pissed with him.
Trepidatiously, though, and I wanted to highlight that because I was glad to see it. I'm glad it wasn't as simple as just like, oh, he pulled the wool over all their eyes again, and like they're all just full on board. It's like, no, we'll listen to you one more time, but if you're bullshitting us again, we're throwing you out the airlock. So like, I'm glad it wasn't.
Yeah, I think that was more of a Brutus thing. Like, I think that is so interesting because like Brutus has pulled this. We saw it in the first episode. Pulls this power play over Silva when they get there and there's only like one coin. One of the New Republic credits, and it is, that's when he makes his power play. Everybody's like, you know what? You've led us astray too much. We're going with Brutus, and he's not ready to give that up. Captain Brutus now. He is, but and I mean, you even have Jod throw some shade at him. I was like, hey, he's a great first mate. We know that.
Yeah. The backhanded compliment. Yeah.
And I think he does get most of them on board, but they will still listen to Brutus right now. And it's like, hey, if you get us there and there's nothing there, you will die. And I think they will listen to Brutus at that point because it would be another time Silva leads them astray again. Yeah. But I think he has them dreaming here of, what else can we get our hands on? And, we have 2 episodes left. Really curious to see how this will shake out because it sounds like the main part is the treasure is that it's a mint, right? That is a mint making money. So it's pretty much we can have as much money as we want. And because we'll be the ones that have it, we control it. So when we go outside of here, people think it's just these rare old coins, rare old credits, but we have the supply that can make us rich because nobody else will have it.
Yeah, that's pretty likely. And I guess we can just kind of get into my theory on all this now. So as you mentioned, when we see that hologram of Renaud, they intentionally kind of flicker it and make it so you can't see his face. At this point, I feel like I'm in the camp that he is the supervisor.
Same. Yep.
Yeah, like it almost feels like he has to be at this point. Otherwise, why conceal his identity? Like it feels like next episode we'll finally see the supervisor and like won't know that he's Renaud, but then in episode 8 we'll get the big reveal. Probably when he comes face to face with his old crew's dead. But probably when he comes face to face with Jod, assuming that Jod knows what he looks like because he knows that he's the most notorious pirate in the galaxy and all this stuff. He seems pretty well versed on Renaud. So it seems like Jod would probably be the one to be able to identify that.
Yeah. I know. I keep seeing people because he does look like a Weequay. So people keep thinking that it's Hondo. I don't think the timeline matches up at all because he would have to have been on At-Atten the whole time. So I don't think that works. Even if it's not, I heard another theory that's like, even if it's not the supervisor at this point, Renaud, it would be like his descendants. Like maybe they've passed this on, like, he settled down there. Now each time it's like the next supervisor is one of his kids type of thing.
That could be.
Something like that. So that way the look is still obfuscated because he would probably be the only Weequay on At-Atten because we've never seen any of the other, we've only seen the aliens that we've seen so far, like Ithorians and whatever Neil is and the humans and stuff. We haven't seen Weequays on At-Atten. So it could be that they just obfuscated that because of that would reveal like who it is type of thing. But no, I think that is probably where we're still going because that's the only reason why you would hide who Renaud is that it's going to be a reveal later on.
I would be so mad if it was Hondo. It would go against everything that John Watts has said about this show in terms of like not having to know other Star Wars media and just being able to enjoy it. If they just throw in like, oh yeah, also here's this character from the animated shows, like, and it's the big reveal of the show, like that would, I mean, I guess objectively as a fan of the animated shows, to be like, oh, cool. But I would feel a little like, oh, this isn't, I don't know. Maybe am I just being a baby about it? I don't know.
No. So I think it can work if it was timeline aside. I think the biggest issue with it is timeline aside. I think you could introduce it being Hondo without needing anybody to know who he is. Right? Like if it's just if it's revealed as Hondo for whatever reason, it can make sense that because the kids won't know who he is, so they would have to explain who he is.
Yeah.
So that would work in that sense. But here's my biggest issue, and this is happening all over social media, no matter the franchise. We're getting so boring when it comes to how we interact with media. I watched Creature Commandos. I watched the Marvel shows. I watched the Star Wars shows. And it is an epidemic upon all of those fandoms that we are watching, looking for cameos. I don't understand why. I understand it's great to see those characters again. And sometimes those cameos make sense and sometimes it works. But spoiler alert for Creature Commandos, they showed Batman. And it was just like, it made sense. Dr. Phosphorus is a Batman villain. It shows Batman just alluding to that he was the one who caught him. Great. But the way you have people analyzing these images of Batman and trying to figure out what it means for the DCU Batman, or who should play him, or and just totally ignoring the better parts of the episode. That was not the best part of the episode. The best part of the episode was more the character stuff with Dr. Phosphorus, but for some reason we're not engaging in that. We're engaging in the cameos. And that was my problem with the tweet the other day of, are we going to see Mando and Grogu? Who cares? And then you keep seeing people like, it's got to be Hondo. One of these characters have to show up. It's like, why? Why? Can't we just have the character moments? This episodes have great character moments with Wim. It has a great character moment with KB. And both of them together, when they say, like, you know, she's like, I'd have zero friends again. And Wim says, oh, you could be friends with me and Neil. And she smiles because she's not used to having options for friends. It's just Fern and her. So for some reason, though, we're not interacting with that. We're only interacting with cameos. I don't understand it. There's more to stories.
And I do want to get to the KB thing after, but just to follow up your point, I feel like all of this started because of people who do what we do, not us in particular, but
yes,
it started with like the YouTube thing, right? You know, YouTube blew up and people realized that you can build a platform.
Here's Easter eggs you missed, instead of it just being fun, people start looking for them just so they can say, I know where that thing is from.
Exactly. It's something that started out as an innocent, fun thing to, like, for diehard fans to be able to, you know, oh, you missed this, you missed that. And we almost didn't realize that, like, we were putting the toothpaste out of the tube and it was just going to keep coming out because it's just gotten more and more extreme to where it started as something that it was like I said, a cool little way for us to catch the things we missed. And then people realize you can make more money by clickbaiting and say, is X going to be in this show? Is Y going to be the big bad of this show? And it's just taken on a life of its own between that and scooper culture to where now it's basically the only way that people consume this stuff in a lot of cases.
And that's the issue. They're feeding into each other. The scooper stuff and the Easter egg stuff is feeding into each other because some of those people are making both forms of content, right? Some of those are people that are not just YouTubers anymore. Some of them get sources or act like they have sources and perpetuate this stuff over and over again. And it's like, it's fine. Like Revenge of the Sith, there's the little Millennium Falcon that you can see on one of the things, and that's cool. But like nowadays, that would be highlighting to be like, do you think this is going to show up in episode 4? If episode 4 wasn't around yet, like that's what it would be. Like, look at this ship. Is it going to appear in anything else? And it's like,
are we going to get a Millennium
Falcon origin story?
Disney Plus show after this? Yeah. Very much so. And it sucks because like the speculating and the doing the what ifs of like, doing like we do, chatting with your buddies and being like, oh, how cool would it be if this one showed up? But when you start to take it from that to that's your expectation and you're allowing whether or not that happens to influence your opinion on a project, that was where we lost our way as a collective fandom, no matter what you're a fan of these days. If it's one of the big properties out there, whether it's Marvel, DC, Star Wars, even like Game of Thrones-y type stuff, any major IP, like it almost feels like has this sort of stink on it now.
Yeah. So that's our rant on that. It's just driving me nuts that most of the things we're talking about with these shows that are on TV right now, because I'm covering Creature Commandos, I'm also covering this show, and both of them have been just plagued by this. Who's going to show up in this episode? Who's going to show up in that episode? It's like, just watch for the story. I'm enjoying these characters of Wim and KB and Fern and Neil, and I want to see how they get home, and I want to see Jod do. Like Jude Law has me so conflicted with him. I want to see him do good stuff, but I get kind of upset.
A bunch of motherfuckers in acid tonight.
Yeah. I mean, I got really upset when he's like backsliding to like lead the pirates to Atten because I'm like, no, just go hang out with the kids. But it's that's what I enjoy, what I watch these shows for. It's not like the Crimson Jack reference where
Yeah,
then, I'm like, oh my God, is Crimson Jack
going back
canon in
in.
this?
Yeah, for sure. All right, but yeah, like you said, we'll move on from that, and we'll go back to KB because I definitely wanted to highlight this. So we see the most that we've gotten from her in this show in episode 6. They finally kind of start to peel back the layers of her backstory and the reason she has this sort of occipital visor. And to me, when I watched this, my first thought was, oh, okay, so what this is a stand-in for chronic illness, right? She talks about like how it's caused her to not maybe be able to keep up with other kids her age, and how it's been a bit of a hindrance at times, and she kind of has to power through anyway and like act like it's not as big of a deal as it really is, just because no one else would understand it. And I really like that. I thought it was great. There's a lot of people out there who, just like I mentioned with the mental illness with Jake Lloyd in the beginning of the show, there's a lot of people who struggle with like chronic illnesses that set them back and have to put on a smile every day and act like it's okay. So I really liked that, and I thought it was a very relatable thing amongst the audience and the fans. And I'm glad that they put that in there, because I think it definitely resonated with me. And I don't have a chronic illness in terms of physicality. Mine's all up here as well. But it just, but it really struck a good chord with me.
I think it can stand for a lot of stuff too, like disability in the sense of like paraplegic. She starts like almost fully shutting down.
Yeah, she was
when
dying.
she doesn't have that. Yeah, when she has that, like she can't move. Right when she's asking for his help and stuff, and then it reboots and she's fine, and that's just kind of like the Star Wars equivalent, I guess. But it's I like that they're exploring that too, because we've seen characters like Lobot in Empire Strikes Back have this stuff on, and you don't think about, you're just like, oh, that's a cool look that Lobot has, or I mean, you probably could get some good stories out of this. We don't really get many of like Anakin or Luke with their arms. They got brand new metal arms, so you don't really have stuff of them like malfunction. There might be a Clone Wars episode that I'm thinking about now, but like they don't have like a lot of that focus on how that actually affects them. It's just like a magic fix, and their hand is fine. So diving into that's what you can do with television as well, which I really like, is giving a little bit more time where you can have these character beats with KB and kind of show something that we don't see a lot in Star Wars, which is like, how do these people function when they have this whole change to their physiology, when they, have to, it sounded like she was in an accident. We don't really know what that was, right? But she said something about like, since the accident, I haven't been able to keep up as much, stuff like that. And it's because they had to, give her some sort of enhanced cybernetics.
Mm. Yeah. So it was, like I said, just a very relatable thing, and I'm glad that they included it in there. I am curious to know what that accident is. I wonder if they go into that, or if that's something they save for next season, just because it seems like we've got a lot. If they get the next season, who knows? But just it seems like we've got a lot to get to these next couple episodes, and I would hate to see them shoehorn it in a way that feels unnatural.
Yeah, I don't think it's
episode felt very natural.
Yeah, I don't think it's something we need to really worry about. I think sometimes, again, that's another thing people get caught up on, is they'll probably want a comic up. Like, okay, with Star Wars does do that. Star Wars does do that, by the way. Star Wars does that a lot, where it'd be like a throwaway line, and they're like, yeah, we need to make a comic about that or a book about that. But like, at times it's like, look, we can start a journey of a character after they've already had some stuff and just allude to it. We don't always have to see the origin of that. But I don't think they'll really touch on it. I think just saying there was an accident is enough to make us know that like she wasn't born that way. Like she, how do characters have stuff like this? We never really focus on that in Star Wars. So seeing that it's like something post-accident, it might also explain why she has a life monitor, right? Because I think that is what her moms were saying.
Yeah.
In the episode 3, I think it was, where they're like, her life monitor went off. We have no clue where she is. because she has cybernetics, it probably has something that does send something back to the parents because they're probably worried about her. I mean, especially if this can happen. I want to know where she is all the time.
Yeah. And she even makes the comment to Wim. What does she say? Like, saving somebody's life wasn't as cool as you thought, or like something like that.
Yeah,
but, like,
yeah.
She would have died. Like, so this isn't just like, oh, the thing would have shut down and she wouldn't have been able to see or something like that. Like, no, she would have literally died. So, like, yeah, heavy stuff. Heavy stuff.
Yeah, really cool too. How she like makes the mold for it, and they pour it in. And it's just like
pours it in the sand and everything.
Yeah.
Like, what do they call
it? Hardens immediately, and they just pop it in.
Like welding? No, not welding. Just like
Like
smithing, black.
Yeah, it's like smithing type thing.
Stuff.
Yeah.
But I guess in keeping with the sort of serious kind of topics, we also get a conversation between Jod and Wim. You know, the first time we see Wim kind of actually afraid. You know, we've mentioned
misses home, misses his mom.
And we've mentioned in the past episodes that it's felt very like he's just all about the adventure and all this stuff, when in reality it was probably him just covering up being really afraid. You know what I mean? Just kind of overcompensating and just like, yeah, let's go on an adventure. Meanwhile, he's crapping his pants.
I'd push back a little bit on that. I think some of it is he was very excited, and I think you can be, but when it starts stretching on a little bit more, and you're like, I think I would have been home by now. It's kind of this is getting a little bit real. Like, there's times where I've definitely been like making plans for something, and then it gets to that time, I'm excited, I go, and then like halfway through the thing, I'm like, this is going longer than I thought. No. I thought I'd be home by now.
Yeah, for sure. Or like you make plans on a Tuesday and then like Friday comes and you're like, oh, man, I wish I didn't do that. Yeah, for sure. But it was a nice heart to heart, and it was surprising that it made Jod's turn after that even more surprising, because like seeing him like relate and have this heart to heart connection with Wim, and even throws the Qui-Gon line in there, you know, about how your focus determines your reality. And we see him use the Force again, so we probably have to touch on that after we get past the emotional side. But I thought it was really good. And like you said, it allowed Jude Law to show off his range. In this one episode, we saw both ends, right? We see the sort of heartfelt, fatherly figure giving Wim advice and kind of helping him push past his fears. And then we see this very brutal, again, like, I know they don't show it or anything, so it's tough to convey how brutal it is what he did, but he literally, how many of those pirates were down there, you know, that he was just like, release the acid to SM-33, right? And you hear them all screaming and dying and like cursing him. It was like, oh my God, like, was not expecting that in this show.
Luckily, Pocket and Urkel were safe. They appear in the next episode. I think Jod will still turn out to be good. I think he'll still do something good. You know who I relate him to? I relate him to Jack Sparrow. It's like this reluctant, like, Jack does that with like with Will and Elizabeth all the time, where it's like this scene, especially when he's talking to Wim, like you said, and it's like he's looking for an out. Oh, you'll see her again soon. You're almost home, whatever. Yeah. And then it's like not my mom. And it's like this thing where he's kind of like leaving, and he's like, oh, am I really going back to talk? That is very Jack Sparrow to me, where I feel like he's like wanting to be like the big famous pirate, and then being like, oh, now I have to go cheer up the people I'm with for some, you know, like, and then like reluctantly do that, but then eventually gain some sort of actual feelings for these people. I do think part of this turn in this episode, when he is, I think there's a couple reasons why he does the challenge for like the trial by combat type thing. One is because Fern is not ready to be a captain. We even see a little bit of a mutiny when KB stands up against her, which I was very happy to see KB just not blindly follow. I thought that was another great KB character moment.
No pun intended.
Yeah.
Blindly follow.
But yeah. But the he knows the real stakes. There are pirates coming for them. He cannot risk his life and the kids' lives by waiting for Fern to make decisions so SM-33 will listen. So he evokes this code and he's like, look, I don't want to hurt you. Just please yield. And I don't think he was actually going to hurt them or anything. Like, but they escape. And it's at that point he's like, all right, I'll take whatever I can get. I'm going to get back up there. I love him coming out of the manhole cover with like all these necklaces and gold.
Yeah. And then SM3 goes, SM-33 attack, and he's got all of them on too, just instantly gets shot. So funny.
And then it's, when he is faced with getting ejected out the airlock when he has to tell them, I can lead you to At-An. So I do think that turn as well is like, I have to save my skin here. But I do think once he sees the kids again and stuff, he will turn on those pirates and help the kids. I hope. I really think there's this conflicted Jod persona here. I think he will use the Force for good at some point, making Wim think he is a Jedi again, or like, I know you had it in you type of thing. Yeah. You are a Jedi, even if just in my thoughts type of thing that Wim can do. I think there'd be a good character moment with that. But I do think I see, Jod is doing this to save his skin now, but I do think he'll turn back and help the kids again.
So you referenced the multiple names thing, and it seems like that's been very much a common theme in this show. Do you think they're trying to set it up to where his real identity is going to be something that we would know? Or do you think it's just one of those things to show that he's always kind of been a con man sort of thing? The Qui-Gon line kind of scared me a little bit. Like,
here's my thought. I think his real name is Jod, Nana Wood. I do. And I think when the kids find out that is his real name, that might make them trust him a little bit more. When it's like, hey, he's given this fake name to everybody else, but he told us who he really is. And I think that would be a nice character moment as well. And just show that there was something that he trusted in those kids. I think that is a way that the theme of just all these aliases can come back around and make like a really cool, heartfelt moment.
Yeah. Okay, good. Because I swear to God, if he comes out in this last 2 episodes and says his name is Jod Gon Jinn, I am just, that's it. That's me going out the window. Because I love when they do the it rhymes stuff, and he threw the Qui-Gon line in there. But I hope it wasn't an intentional setup as much as it was just a fun Easter egg. And I think it probably was just a fun Easter egg, because Star Wars does that basically in every single project at this point. But definitely
think about what you're saying. That would be like saying, I have a bad feeling about this. Like, each of those characters are related. So I think
true.
I think there are times where they like to echo like the other characters. The only thing that might hint is that maybe he did have some sort of Jedi training early on that he did not get close to completing because of the Civil War.
That was the only reason I got a little nervous with this one in particular, because like 9 times out of 10, yes, it's just like you said, it's very much just kind of a rhyming thing. But because they've been hinting at the Force wielder and the Jedi of it all with him, even in the end of episode 5, the parting shot is him sparking up the lightsaber that Wim found. So it just, like, they're really trying to lean into the Jedi side of it. And I just, it's a fine line to walk, and you can walk it. But just hopefully they don't go too crazy. But I trust John Watts and all them to not be that nuts with it. So had to throw it out there.
When you ask about like who, like his name or whatever, I can't think of a character that would make me be like, oh my God, that's him. Like, other than like,
God,
we know it's not. We know it's not Caleb Doom, right? Like, that was Kanan. He's gone. Talk about, blindly following. And then you have, I don't know any other characters that'd be like, oh crap, that's a name from, like a young guy other than Cal Kestis. And I don't think that matches at all. So I do think if anything, it would be revealed. Maybe he did have some Jedi training very early on. And that was it. Like, not enough that he would have like a Jedi in hiding type of thing, but just something like why he can't do certain things. His force use seems very arbitrary, but he does know how to use a lightsaber, at least enough to know like, kid, don't touch that. You're not ready for that.
So funny, by the way, turning it on upside down, dude. I literally had me cracking up. I had to pause it for a second because I didn't want to miss anything. But I
kind of got spoiled on it, where people are like, "That is the most accurate depiction of a lightsaber use ever," you know. And then I was like, when it comes, I'm like, what would be the most accurate? And then it happened, and I was like, oh, eyes under.
Yeah.
You don't even know which way you're holding it.
Because it looked, I will say, the design of it too, it looked like he was holding the right end of it. Like there was the little hole at the bottom of the emitter and everything.
Yeah.
Oh, so good. So good, dude.
But then he also knew like there were some things that Wim says about the Jedi where he kind of says like, that's true, that's not true. So it might have something like that. But do you actually believe he has the Force now? Or are we still holding out?
Magnets, baby. No, I do think at this point it is pretty undeniable that he has the Force. And I'm almost at the point now where I'm wondering if that's because we did see that Watts or somebody who is high up involved in the show said that there is a plan that they could explore for a season 2 if they did go that route. So I'm wondering if that's something that, like, I wonder if that is what the exploration would be, kind of diving back into Jod's Force wielder past. I think that would be a cool thing, because I don't want, that's another thing, like, yeah, it would be, I do want us to get some kind of reveal in that regard in these next 2 episodes in terms of like what exactly is his relation with the Force and the Jedi, but we're not going to have nearly enough time in these next 2 episodes to really explore that. So I think that would be a cool open thread that you can keep there, and if they do go at season 2, you can explore it, but if not, it's not going to ruin the sanctity of season 1.
Right. I don't know if they would explore like the past, unless if it's like flashbacks into a current story.
That's what I'm thinking
for season 2.
Yes.
Yeah. I think if I had to predict, it would be something like him having maybe a sit down with Wim and being like, revealing, I'm not a Jedi. I did have some training, but But I would love to just see him like do something with the lightsaber, almost like a Chekhov lightsaber there, and the Force, and Wim just like lighting up and being like, I knew you had it in you type of thing. Like I think that'd be a really cool moment.
He is 1000% going to use that lightsaber at some point in the next 2 episodes. They would not have ended episode 5 with him igniting it if they were just going to leave it at that. I think he is definitely going to use that at some point.
My only question would be, did he hide it well enough from the pirates, or is it on the ship and they don't know what it is?
Yeah, it would probably be a thing where he gets it back.
Yeah, like use the Force pull it.
Like, yeah. Yes, 100%. Yeah, Force pulls it into his hand. That's my guess.
All right. Anything else about these episodes? Oh, okay. Definitely Fern and Neil. They had some great exchanges as well.
They did.
Fern was right to go up the steps, right? I was kind of Wim does follow these trash crabs to the wrong place. But they all kind of team up together.
Yeah, that was really interesting. I'm glad that you mentioned that, because like everything about like the messaging in that scene and what they wanted to convey about like KB and Fern, and like, KB being the one to be like, you know what, maybe you don't know best all the time, to then just go and reinforce the fact that Fern was right and KB was wrong, felt a little like odd to me, I'll admit.
Yeah, I'm thinking it seemed like the real obvious place to go anyway. The trash crabs are leading them completely away from the ship. Anytime they look back, it's all the way back there.
I love how they did like the hermit crab thing, but they're all used, like their shell is just like droid parts. That was funny.
Yes. Yeah. And it leads them to like this incinerator. So they actually kind of go to the right place too, because that's where the ship was going to get taken to.
True.
So it kind of played out for both sides the correct way, but it was really more of a KB standing up for herself type of moment. And then, like Wim says, being able to tell that to Fern, you know, like, why don't you just tell Fern, you know, because their whole exchange is like, Fern treats me like I'm different. He's like, or not different. And he's like, that's great. And she's like, but I am different. So sometimes I do need to be treated different. And, you know, he's like, just talk to her, pretty much is what he says. And she's worried if she does talk to her that it'll be the end of their friendship. But they all kind of come back together. And
just thought of something else that might have been. So not that in particular, but this whole scene in particular. So they go their separate ways. And as much as like, yeah, Fern was kind of right, at the same time, it was still a very hairy situation trying to get out of there in the ship and all that stuff. So they're spread apart, and they both made I don't want to say both made the wrong choice, because they ended up getting out of there, but it wasn't until they all reunited that they were able
they got
to,
it out.
Yeah. And it was almost like you needed one part of it. Like you said, with the incinerator, it's like they needed to come back together for that sequence of events to play out exactly the way it did for them to get out of there. So there's definitely some sort of like back messaging there of like, yeah, you can only do it if you're all together, sort of thing. You know, you got to be a team.
Well, yeah, because Neil takes control, right? Yeah. And you have KB running the computer. You have Wim on the ship, you know, like the gunner position. And then you have Fern doing like a bunch of stuff to try to get it going. And they eventually, like, she has that again. This was another great setup. This is what I was talking about. Last time when we talked, when they set up Fern shutting down K2, or like the not K2 SO, but like SM33, where they are, where she's, you know, like override, and it's set up from the first episode. There's this thing that SM33 said, like, never touch that. Obviously, those always come back around, but this comes back around, and it is how they get out. And it's like, again, we're getting payoff to stuff, I think, and it feels good. Like when those moments happen, I'm like, yes. The same thing with the trap door in episode 5 is not like a random thing. It happens, and then Wim remembers it, and he's like, boom, we're out of here, you know? And I love those moments, because it's really like telling me that they thought it through, they set stuff up, and it makes me feel very safe about the next 2 episodes.
Yeah, and they wrote this show as it's its own story. If we get more, cool, but we're not gonna set up a bunch of concrete threads that you're gonna feel gypped if we don't address them, like the acolyte.
Just wait. We're gonna get the scene where they go in and Yoda's ghost is sitting there, and Wim walks in and he's like, "I got to tell you about this guy, John."
The ruler of Anakin, you are. Yeah.
But yeah, so like that's the, you know, I think we're not going to have any sort of setup like that. I think you're right on that.
Yeah.
That was good. I think we had a lot of great conversation about these 2 episodes. The Onyx Cinder is now sleek.
Yeah.
It looks great. Can't wait to see it in action.
Hell yeah.
As now they'll be heading, KB knows the coordinates, right? They're now heading back to Atten. We have the pirates race, and Dodd going back there.
Yep.
And we have the parents there trying to figure out what happened to their kids. And we'll probably have some more scenes about that in the next couple episodes.
Have to mention it really quick before we get out of here, but it had me cracking up. Could Wim's dad have been any more obvious in that opening scene?
What's behind your back?
Yeah, when he gets
the other hand.
yeah. Oh my God. And like he's looking at his computer, looking over at the droid computer. It's like, dude, at least attempt to be a little bit covert. Holy crap.
I love that though. It's like this hand, and it's like, yeah, now show me the other one. This one, and both at the same time.
Yeah. Oh man, it's too funny.
He's very Wim coded, I would say, right? Like you see where he gets it from.
Big time.
Oh, I did see some theories about maybe Wim's mom is a descendant of the Renaud crew as well. And that's why she tells all these fantastical stories and stuff. Like, she has a life outside of there before. I think that's a pretty cool theory.
Yeah, that would be cool. Do you think there's any chance that she's still like alive out there somewhere, or like maybe she died in that whole mutiny on Renaud's ship?
I don't think it's something that the way I could see it happening maybe is Renaud, if Renaud is the supervisor or a descendant, is being like running in with whim, this kind of thing of, oh, I remember your mom, type of thing, type of thing where it's like, oh, like or alluding to that. And maybe that's why she had such a fondness for stories that it seems like the rest of At-Aten doesn't care for.
Yeah. And it would explain Whim's sort of natural disposition towards adventure too.
Yeah. Yeah. Coming from a pirate.
Put a pin in that. That could be that. We can come back to this next week and be like, yeah, you were dead on.
Yeah. I forget where I saw that from, but I thought it was a cool theory that I would share on here.
Nice.
But yeah, so that'll wrap us up today. If you want to send us any theories or any thoughts, you must contact us.
You must contact me
at podawakens@gmail.com. You can also reach us on all of our social medias at podawakens as the handle. Have a great rest of your week, and we will catch you next time.
Hello there.
You know what I've come for. This is the way.